Olivia Lone Bear was a 32-year-old mother of 5 who disappeared from the Fort Berthold Reservation in North Dakota on October 24, 2017. That day, she had texted a friend asking if she could borrow his truck, as she often did, and she told him that she would just be doing laundry at the home she shared with her father that day. But when Olivia's family came home that day, they saw that she had left behind her wallet, her debit cards, her cell phone, and her jacket. But Olivia was nowhere to be found. The truck she had borrowed was also missing. Her family took to Facebook to try to find out if anyone knew where Olivia might be. But with no luck, on October 27, 2017, Olivia's father, Tex Lone Bear, reported her missing to the 3 affiliated tribes police. Tribal police did not file their official report on Olivia's case until October 30th, and they did not organize an official search for Olivia until November 1st. They offered very little help or resources to Olivia's family, so her family was essentially left to search the reservation on their own. Olivia lived just a mile and a half down the road from Lake Sakakawea, which is a huge 480 square mile lake. Her family, right from the get-go, was trying to push authorities to search the lake and get boats on the water, but they could get no help from police. Within just a few weeks of Olivia's disappearance, a volunteer organization did try to help search the lake for Olivia's family, but the lake was so massive that they could only search small parts of it. Tribal police didn't speak directly with Olivia's family about her disappearance until 5 weeks after she went missing. Soon, winter settled over North Dakota, and Lake Sakakawea froze over, making it impossible to get boats on the water to search for her. Authorities did later find out that Olivia had texted a friend that day, saying that she would be going to a bonfire and then going out mudding. But none of Olivia's family or friends had any idea of any gatherings that night or anyone that she would have gone out to these things with. Months went by and there were no sightings of Olivia or the truck she was last seen driving. The last time Olivia was officially seen was on October 24, 2017, around 6 p.m., leaving the Ranchman Saloon and Steakhouse, where she had previously worked. The very last image ever taken of Olivia was by a surveillance camera, showing that she stopped at a store somewhere in Newtown, North Dakota that night, near her home. In January 2018, the Bureau of Indian Affairs took over Olivia's case, but still no progress was being made. But Olivia's family was not giving up, and they spent months searching nearly every day on the reservation for Olivia. Volunteers would come from as far away as Montana to help search for her. But nothing turned up to lead to Olivia's whereabouts until the summer of 2018. There will be a part 2. This is Lissa Yellowbird Chase. She's the founder of an organization that volunteers to search for missing people, particularly missing Indigenous people. She started working with the Lone Bear family early on in the investigation, but within a few weeks, tensions rose between Lissa and the Lone Bear family, and they did ultimately cut ties with one another. But in July 2018, Lissa felt called and inspired to go back to Lake Sakakawea to search for Olivia. At this point, 9 months later, police still had not organized a water search for Olivia. And now that the lake was finally thawed, Lissa decided to take her own boat out and search for her. Lissa's boat was equipped with sonar imaging technology. So Lissa and volunteers from her organization took a boat out onto the lake and immediately started scanning the lake bed. And this is the first image that they caught of what they suspected was a truck on the bottom of the lake. Lissa spent days taking dozens of sonar images, and she sent the images to local authorities, who finally agreed that it was time to send divers down to the lake. On July 31st, 2018, a team of divers did locate a truck on the bottom of Lake Sakakawea. It sat about 400 feet from the shore and was submerged under 21 feet of water. When they pulled the truck out of the water, it was quickly confirmed that this was indeed the missing truck that Olivia had been driving the day she was last seen. Authorities on the scene were also able to confirm that there was a body inside of the truck. This is the site where the truck was pulled out of the lake. Within just one day, the FBI confirmed to Olivia's family that it was indeed Olivia's body that they had found inside of the truck. But what was incredibly disturbing about this discovery is that Olivia was buckled into the passenger seat. Now, almost 4 years later, there are no updates in Olivia's case, and no one has been held responsible for her suspicious death. I think it's pretty clear that something terrible happened to Olivia, and someone knows exactly what happened. Someone else was in the driver's seat of that truck before it went to the bottom of Lake Sakakawea. Someone is responsible for the death of Olivia Lone Bear. If you have any information on the suspicious death of Olivia Lone Bear on October 24th, 2017, please call this number.
The man who supplied drugs to Mac Miller has now been sentenced. On September 7, 2018, Malcolm McCormick was found unresponsive at his home by his assistant. 39-year-old Ryan Rivas pleaded guilty last year to 1 count of distribution of fentanyl. He's been sentenced to more than 10 years in prison. Ryan admitted to knowing the pills contained fentanyl or some other controlled substance. He then gave the pills to 30-year-old Cameron Pettit, who then supplied them to Miller 2 days before the overdose. Cameron's case is pending. A man named Stephen Walter pleaded guilty as well, and he's awaiting sentencing.
This man killed his son's abuser on live television. Jeff Doucette was a karate instructor in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, who abducted and sexually assaulted one of his students, 11-year-old Jody Plouch, in 1984. After a month on the run, police were able to track Jeff to California and bring him back to Baton Rouge, where Jody's father, Gary, was waiting for him in arrivals with a .38 revolver. Gary shot Jeff in the head with a news camera filming the entire crime, but when he went on trial for murder, he was only given a 7-year suspended sentence.
Let's talk about what happened to 34-year-old Rita Gutierrez-Garcia. Rita was a mother of 3 from Longmont, Colorado. She had 2 sisters named Jessica Nicole and an older brother named Omar. She was really close to her family, especially with her mother, Diane. Rita loved to listen to music, and she also liked to cook Italian meals and bake Italian desserts. She was also working towards becoming a paralegal. So fast forward to St. Patrick's Day weekend in 2018. Rita and her friends and family had plans to go celebrate St. Patrick's Day at some bars in downtown. The following day, on Sunday, March 18th, her sister Nicole was having a baby shower, so she was going to have a very eventful weekend. So on Saturday, March 17th, 2018, Rita and her group meet at this bar called Breakers, and they're pretty much there the entire night. They're having a lot of fun drinking and celebrating St. Patrick's Day, but eventually the party has to come to an end. So at around 2:30 in the morning on Sunday, March 18th, the group headed to this parking lot behind the Threes bar. Rita was seen talking on the phone as she walked towards the parking lot, and she told her friends and family that she was getting a ride from someone else. Later that morning, Diane heads over to Rita's house to pick her and the boys up to go over to Nicole's baby shower. She calls Rita to let her know she's on her way, but Rita doesn't pick up the phone. When she gets to Rita's house, she walks inside and sees that Rita is nowhere to be found. Rita's 3 boys tell Diane that their mother never came home that night. After numerous attempts to contact Rita, the family decides to call the Longmont Police Department and report her as missing. The Longmont police immediately knew that Rita wasn't a runaway and that something bad had happened to her. They head over to the parking lot where she was last seen to see if there were any witnesses or surveillance cameras that might have caught her, but there were none. So the police check Rita's cell phone records, and they see that 4 minutes after Rita was last seen, she made 2 911 calls from her phone. These were hang-up calls, so the police did try to call her back, but Rita never answered the phone. Then at around 3:10 in the morning, her phone went offline around this area. Either her phone died or someone turned off her phone. So now police and the family are really worried because she called 911 twice, so the police go back to the bar to see if there are any witnesses that can remember anything about that night. A witness comes forward and says that she saw Rita talking to this man inside this bar. They also saw him hanging outside the bar and then talking to Rita as she was heading to the parking lot. So police check the surveillance cameras in the area where Rita's phone last pinged, and they see that at 3:03 in the morning, a man matching the description of the man seen talking to Rita passed by the cameras. Police track down this man, and it turns out to be then 29-year-old Juan Jose Figueroa. They go to Juan's house to speak to him, and he's nowhere to be found. Part 2 should be up now. Alright, this is part 2 on what happened to Rita Gutierrez-Garcia. So police arrived to Juan's house to speak to him, but he was nowhere to be found. His mother told police that she hadn't seen him, and for the next 9 days, he would be missing. During these 9 days, Rita's family continued to search for her, put flyers of her all over social media and all over the community. They were still holding on to hope that Rita would be found and reunited with them soon. So then, thankfully, on March 27, 2018, Juan Jose Figueroa is arrested at the U.S.-Mexico border. However, he wasn't arrested because of Rita. He was actually arrested on a separate case that involved the sexual assault of a woman in 2017. So it turns out that shortly after police arrived to his home to ask him about Rita, Jose left Colorado on March 20th and headed to Texas. He was only there for a little bit before he crossed the border to Mexico on March 22nd. While he was in Mexico, he was asking people for money and telling his friends and family that he was in trouble. He also made plans to sell his truck, and he also deep cleaned it. Then, for some reason, on March 27th, he tried to re-enter the U.S., and that's when he was arrested. As I mentioned, he wasn't arrested because of Rita. He was arrested because in 2017, he met a woman at a bar in Longmont, Colorado. Him and this woman went back to his apartment, and when they were at his apartment, he tried to force himself on her, and he actually knocked her unconscious when she resisted. When this woman woke up, all of her clothes were gone and Juan was just standing over her, slapping her, and thankfully she was able to get away. While Jose was in jail for this sexual assault charge, the Longmont police officially named him a suspect in the disappearance of Rita Gutierrez. So police checked Jose's car, but since he deep cleaned it, it was pretty much spotless. But police were very thorough with this and they found a stain on the fabric on his passenger seat of his car. When they did a DNA test, it came back as Rita Gutierrez-Garcia. This confirmed to police that at one point Rita was inside his car. While Jose was in jail, he allegedly told his cellmate that he had strangled a missing woman and disposed of her body before returning to his sister's house on Sunday, March 18th. He says that this woman called him a weirdo and that made him mad, so he decided to punch her and he knocked her unconscious. After that, he strangled her. Police assume that he was talking about Rita. Then 2 years go by and there are still no signs of Rita. Jose says he had nothing to do with Rita's disappearance and he's just not talking. Then on April 6, 2021, Juan was indicted by a grand jury for the kidnapping and murder of Rita Gutierrez-Garcia. To this day, her body has never been found. The family installed a bench in Rita's honor, and this is a place where they can go visit Rita and talk to her. There is a $10,000 reward for anyone that can lead police to Rita's body. I hope that she's found and the family can have some type of closure.
What these parents did is so shocking.
16-year-old Latanya was woken up in the middle of the night by her stepfather. He told her that he wanted to go help his friend whose car had broken down, and he asked Latanya to come with him because she had a smartphone and could use her GPS and navigate him there. Now, when Tanya's mom woke up the next morning, her husband and daughter were gone, and she immediately reported their disappearance to police. And the police then began the search for the pair. Now, it turns out that the man Tanya had married had a very shady past. In fact, Tanya had married him while he was still in prison. And now he was missing with her 16-year-old daughter. Now, it would be 1 year later before police would get a call. They had spotted Leon, the husband, at a local store. The police rushed to the shopping center and were completely shocked by what they saw. Tanya was with her husband. They were shopping. Now, it turns out that Tanya and her husband had planned to get rid of her daughter. And the night she filed the missing report, she actually sent the police in the opposite direction. They had been plotting to do this from the beginning. Eventually, Latanya's remains were found. Leon got the death penalty, and her mother got life in prison. If you want to hear more 7 Sins Crime, you have to hit that plus button.